3. You know what? We'll just do that. That's what we got. Yo, what's up, everyone? We are kind of back, not really. I've been away for a little bit, as you can probably tell, no uploads. So I've been at jury duty for the last 2 weeks, and that's where I've been. This particular murder trial is happening in upstate New York, which is finished now, and I'm allowed to talk about it. And it's kind of interesting. There's very many levels to it. We'll see as we go through it. Just happened yesterday, so today's the 2nd of April. April Fool's Day, coincidentally, not intentional, obviously, but it was what it was. We'll go through it. This trial is pretty crazy. I got summoned for jury duty early in March, and it was one that you could not get out of. There was no number to call. They were just call on this day. Something about the date being less than 31 days, and you're not able to get out of it because it's too close to the time. So I ended up calling, and they told me to report, and my number was 333. Which, obviously, as many of you may know, if you're around those circles, that's kind of a weird number. So I was immediately struck, and I was like, oh, shit, I'm going. They have, the Illuminati have picked me for some reason to report to jury duty. So it was weird. I kind of already assumed before I even got picked and selected that it was I'm going to be on the jury for, whatever, I don't even know. I'm terrible at local news. I'm sure probably many of you are, but, everybody's great on whatever Trump's fucking doing or whatever, national stuff, but local stuff, horrible. So I was like, well, whatever, we'll go see what's going on at this thing. All day process, essentially. So it gets to around 2 o'clock. They start calling people up, and then you find out that it's this a murder trial of a CO who was a group of COs who were, I guess it doesn't matter at this point, but there is still some of them that are awaiting trial. So we'll just say everything's alleged still at this point. When I talk about Jonah Levy, then we can, talk specifics with that guy, but. Anyway, there was part of a group of COs that responded to an emergency call, which I will get into the details of. And an inmate was told to cuff up, refused. So this is all important, aspects of it. And he was beaten so badly that he eventually died about a half hour later. There's many officers there, present, and around, and, probably, ultimately didn't need to happen. You could have did it 1,000 different ways. All of that we'll talk about, too. But anyway, that's the story. So this is the story of one guy, Jonah Levy, and his participation in those events. And, the criminal trial that ensued. So we find this out at that point. They bring, lots of people up there. I was very late in the pool, ended up being number 10, ultimately. But that day they were going to take a break for lunch. There was going to be a late lunch at like 2 or whatever. So they were trying to ram through as many as possible. So I think they got maybe 18 of us up there at that point, and then they were starting to strike people. Oh, pardon me. They ask you like the basic questions or whatever. They ask you the little survey questions on the form and stuff. And I don't know. They say it's random. I kind of saw her like picking it out of a box. I don't know if they like kind of stack the top of the box with, ones that they'd prefer over not prefer. Who knows? But, from what I can tell from my vantage, it seemed random. So yeah, you go up, you answer questions, the basic shit. And honestly, I probably could have snaked my way out of it had I could have elaborated a few little tales or something to, make it a little spicier than what it was or whatever. But, I didn't. There wasn't really anything causing me bias. So I was just like, I didn't know really what else to do, so I kind of just answered as truthfully as really possible. I did answer truthfully. There wasn't really anything holding me up as far as their questions that they asked. And then, yeah, they threw me on there. We come back the next day, and, they had already, I guess after they let us go, everybody they picked for real. And then after lunch, they had picked the remainder of the jurors that they needed, plus the alternates. And then, we came in hot and ready day number 2 on Tuesday. So that would have been, I hate how the calendar is on Windows 11. Oh, dumb. Okay. So that would have been, come on, mouse. Not that it really matters. Matters to me more for my recollection, I guess. So that would have been the 24th. So the 23rd was selection, and then so the 24th was like the start of the trial. So yeah, this first episode, ramble fest. All right. There will be probably a lot of info. I do plan to kind of make like a little, I don't know how many episodes, but a multi-part series, we'll say, where I kind of go into depth on each little part. I have a lot of thoughts about like the legal system in general, the court system, how the process. This case, obviously, also, I spent basically 2 weeks of my life kind of inside this case. It was very strange. And it changed my life, not to be dumb about it, but it definitely did. So, yeah, first episode, this is just going to be like an amalgamation of a vomit of thoughts, if you will. Just because I kind of been, you're not allowed to really talk about it, during everything. And then, so now it happens, it kind of just so happened that nobody's really around to talk to about it. So I kind of got to get these like thoughts out. And even if they were, like, would they want to hear, an hour plus of just like, bleh, of all this nonsense? But there might be some people that will. So that's why, we'll put, the defendant's name and everything in the title so people can find it if they are wanting to watch it. But, be forewarned, if you made it this far, there's going to be cursing, there's going to be swearing, there's going to be, actual thoughts, and they may or may not be politically incorrect to your point of view, and like, too fucking bad, you don't like it, there's the door, baby. But I don't know that many people are talking about these. There was a couple cases in New York, actually, of inmates getting killed. This 2, I believe. So then, like, a bunch of COs trials. So, it's kind of a hot topic and relevant. I'll tell you a lot of different thoughts about it. I have I don't know if sympathy is the correct word. I have an understanding of how difficult of a position that these officers were put in. It's no laughing matter. I mean, it's not. It's. I don't want to say it's like a life and death situation every single day, but come on. It's if you got like kids at home and a wife and like you just want to go home at the end of the day, and there's like some violent, uncertain situations that you walk into on a daily basis where you really have a maybe a fear of not going home, or at least you're going to go home changed. Who knows what will happen. I'm not going to make assumptions or justifications for these guys, but I'm like I said, like I have an understanding. So I'm not just, there's other guys, obviously. If you've been to the channel before, kind of my politics. So, I'm not some bleeding heart guy that's like, oh my God, these guys are in there for a reason, obviously. That's, finding out now this guy was in for murder. As we'll see, we're going to go through a bunch of like comments on the Facebook posts. I'll tell you, it's split 50-50. A lot of people, and I'm not going to guess their politics, but I mean, I guess you could assume a lot of people think that these guys should have walked, not, free all charges, not guilty across the board. And like, I'm going to be fucking honest, dude. This is New York State. And then you might be upstate in New York State where, on the map for a general election, that part is red. But brother, this is New York State. So I'm telling you, it's not the odds of somebody being able to just kind of get not guilty across the board, nigh impossible, A, on the grounds that it's New York, and then B, once you get into the evidence that was available, it's pretty fucking raw deal. Like, you could have went around, you could have went about this in so many different ways. Like, dude, you could have, like, it's a room, small room, dormitory room, no bars. I mean, look, it's hard to put yourself in these guys' shoes or whatever, but this is just a layman's perspective, outside view, having seen the body cam footage over and over and over and over again of this one fucking incident from different angles, but not really seeing the incident, mind you. So, like, I'll say that up front. Like, what actually happened, you do not see. You hear some, but you do not see. So, it wasn't just like this easy case. And like I said, so like the New York aspect, you have a diverse, and maybe not color-wise, there was only one, black gentleman on there. He's a younger guy, 20 years old, young kid. He's a nice kid, though. But you diverse political opinions, we'll just put it lightly. Because I really, despite everything of, previous episodes, this is P&G's Sidebar. So, this is not, we're not actually doing comedy as much. Hopefully we'll keep it light and make some jokes, but, this is different entirely. So we're talking serious business. Anyway. Where to start? So, the Jonah Levy murder trial. I gotta say, so my first thought was when I heard the name, I was like, can we get a check on the early life? I mean, what's going on here? This is crazy. And so this is maybe just a case example of not all Jewish people are hooked up as seen on TV. So you may look on TV and you're like, oh my God, you watch Nick Fuentes, as we do, and you say, the cabal, the frick cabal, cabal probably, the massive wave of influence. All right, this guy, you can't get any more Old fucking Testament than this gentleman's name. So I I can look up his background now, and we probably will in a future episode, just for kind of interest in the series, so to speak. But my brother, you can't get any more Old Testament than this name. So not everybody's hooked up. So he comes in. Maybe we'll just go through a little bit of the cast of characters. And it's like I said, it's going to be rambling. There's going to be a lot of general thoughts. I guess if you want to end the video early, and I mean, you already probably, if you even know this, you know what the verdict is and all that. But a random passerby, the verdict, ultimately he was charged with murder 2, manslaughter 1, I believe, gang assault 1, 2, conspiracy 5, and false filing of an instrument. And I don't know if there was a number on that one. I don't believe there was. They were all, all those other 5, they were all felonies, obviously. Not guilty on murder, guilty on all the rest. And so intense deliberations went into that decision. The room was kind of split on wanting to give him the full charges, and then the other half, including myself, was wanting to not do the murder based on lack of evidence and the state not proving their case beyond a reasonable doubt as the cause for not doing the first charge of murder. So there was myself and a group of us that kind of felt strongly about that, and then we can kind of calmed everybody down to the lesser of two evils, I suppose, the manslaughter. Because, guys, like, you can think whatever you want to fucking think. And, like, I don't know, honestly, I don't even know what body cam footage, if that was even allowed to be seen outside of the courtroom or not. So I guess maybe if you weren't present for it, you couldn't see it. And I don't believe, there was no cameras recording the evidence portions. Like, cameras came in at the end for like the verdict readings and stuff like that. But body cam footage, yeah, it was nuts, man. It was nuts. Hearing, I guess, well, because you could not really see the best of the incident, we'll say. But hearing it was awful. So, you can think what you want about the charges and like how we deliberated it, but what I'll say about the murder and what I particularly did not like about that particular charge, the way, I believe this is how it works, like the judge interprets the law, right? And so he, at the end of the court or the trial, before his deliberation, he gives you the instructions of how, these are the charges, these are what these mean, the definitions or whatever. And, I do believe, I don't know if it's exactly how it works, but this is my belief, and I probably will look it up so I'm not looking like a moron right this second, but it's his interpretation of that and how it should be read. So the way the murder charge read was boiled down, in a sense, if you were present in the room, you were just as guilty as the person committing the act of murder, essentially, right? It's a little deeper than that. There's a lot more that goes into it. I'm not a lawyer. There was, a lot of terms and stuff or whatever. And I'll tell you, like the adrenaline rush of like finishing and everything, it takes a minute to kind of collect everything that's going on. But in a sense, that was what it was. If you were in the room, you were kind of an accessory or whatever. So based on the fact you could not see anything inside that room, you could only hear, there were examples of Levi being out of, I think, well, Levi, I think it's Levy, and I believe it is counts Levy. So I'm sorry. So Levy was outside the room enough at times to yell at prisoners and like tell them to get back in their rooms, etc. So and like there's just like was like different testimonies which we'll get into, which were conflicting enough that I felt the reasonable doubt was there that he wasn't guilty of the murder. So everybody there was, or not everybody, I guess everybody on the pro guilty on all charges side felt that that didn't matter. He was there. Mainly their argument, if I can just boil it down to a sense, and this is reducing it, so I don't want to do that to those people. Everybody that goes in there, they have feelings, and it's a lot. It's a lot to take on. But those people had the argument that like if you were there and didn't stop it, like you're guilty. So like see something, say something in a sense. But I guess my problem with it too, there were initially 4 National Guardsmen up there. And then one officer, he was the officer with the body cam. He essentially leaves when the emergency response team comes in. And these guys are like the SWAT team. They don't get called because you dropped your glass of water. They get called for emergency response. So, right? Like, doesn't that make sense in the fucking name? I kind of equated it in my mind to the SWAT team kind of when I saw it. And there was so many guys in that hall and around the situation that didn't say anything or didn't stop it, that honestly, if we're doing that, then like what, the whole fucking floor is guilty of murder too. So I kind of just felt, like, and I kept saying this, and I said this in the room to a sense, not to be dumb about it, but I was like, you want this for America, because there is those times when somebody gets charged with a crime and there is no evidence and he is innocent, and you don't want him to be charged and convicted without evidence. And like, to me, I felt this was one of those cases. Like, I was like, dude, if we convict this guy of no evidence for like the highest crime in the world, the highest, like the greatest sin in Christianity, murder. Probably, I don't know many religions, I assume. I don't know. But, murder is a grave sin. So, like, to convict this guy of murder, like, I wanted to be able to see that he did it. So, and there was, like I said, there's a conflicting evidence. There was this boot print on the victim's head that was hard enough to leave a perfect match of the boot. And that did not belong to our guy, Levy. That belonged to another guy that's going to go on trial soon. And in my mind, I would say that would, like, if that was evidence, if that had Levy's boot print on there, like a perfect match, I would say we probably would have went all charges, honestly. So good luck to the other guy, innocent until proven guilty. I really do believe that, but that trial is next month. I will probably actually talk about it just because why not? Freaking content, and now I do have like a personal stake in it somewhat. So, all right. Anyway, we'll just kind of like ramshackle through this. I just had this pick up in the background. This is the defense attorney, Graham Spicer. So not Graham like a graham cracker, Graham like the weird spelling with like 2 E's. And, everybody in the jury room, so I wouldn't say everybody. A large portion of the jury room did not like this man. So let's compartmentalize. I can go into a thing without bias and also appreciate the situation, right? Doing my, even though I've only actually been doing like a news type show for a short while, I've obviously been following for many, many, many years, decade at this point, right? At least, 2016, definitely before that a little bit even, but so no stranger to following the defense attorney and kind of like rooting for the defense attorney, because usually, the Cal Rittenhouse case, Zimmerman, and the other ones too. I can't even think of it, but there's been like a couple other notable defense attorneys they're just like scrappy. They're kind of funny. They, they just have some kind of, a little bit of aura, as the kids say about them, so like I said, I was not like in the jury box, like rooting for this guy, but like, and I could kind of like see, so I'm kind of putting myself outside of the situation, and I'm like, oh yeah, this guy's cool, I'm sure the other people, like I mentioned, they probably thought he was more like, how much time are we at? They probably thought he was more like a Lionel Hutz type of character, which, fair enough. But he had like a way of doing his cross-examinations and stuff like that was unique. I don't know if it's unique to defense attorneys, but first time, long time. So I've never really been up close and personal like this in this way to it. But he would ask you a question. He'd be like, "Is it fair to say that today the sky is blue? Would you find that to be correct?" And then you would, give your, oh, correct, or yes, or however you would answer. But obviously, I think this is their job, right, is to give like the leading questions, right? But anyway, I did find him, like I said, I literally went in, honest to God's truth, before everything happened, as far as me finding out information about the trial. So I knew nothing. I knew zero. We went to the selection, and they tell you briefly the charges, and that's all you're allowed to know, right? You're allowed to know the 6 charges. And then they kind of come in when they're doing the selection. They're like, oh, do you think my client's innocent or guilty right now? And then if anybody says like, oh, they're guilty, right, they get, pulled. And you're like, oh, innocent till proven guilty. That's how America works, But, so I kind of lost where I was going. But I guess, okay, so like, I remember now. So before, this point, I'm like, oh, this guy is like Derek Chauvin. This guy is going to get fucking railroaded. It's like, oh, this must be why, 333 on the fucking juror selection thing. Oh, destined to be here for some reason, right? I got picked for some reason. But dumbly. I really wasn't like, like walking around like a zombie, like thinking like, oh my God, my destiny. But like, I was like, oh, it must be must be something, right? So I was just like, this guy's probably getting railroaded. And his name is Jonah Levy, or Levy. And I was like, oh, well, isn't that ironic, considering some of the segments that have happened on my show? So I was like, this must be some kind of thing where I'm supposed to save him from the... I'm not even going to make the joke, all right? So, like, you insert the joke. I'm going to save him from the box that's hot. So, that's kind of what I thought. I was like, oh, crap. This guy's going to get railroaded. We're in New York, like, as I previously mentioned. I have the views that I have. I was like, this must be the thing. It's like I'm supposed to hang the jury or, whatever to kind of, like, save this guy. So I did go in, and not even like that. So that's, like, too strong to, like, I got to go in and save this guy. I was like, I got to go in and, find the truth and, get to the heart of the matter or whatever. I kind of knew going in, it being a prison and the death of an inmate, I was like, there's way more to the fucking story than this little piece that the New York State attorney is trying to feed me, right? So I went in skeptical as a motherfucker. But, obviously, going through the 2 weeks and then the verdict that we gave, I feel I can sleep at night. Like it's sad as shit all around. And I'm sorry, and not that they'll probably ever see this, but like to the family of Mr. Levy, like I feel bad, and my heart breaks for the kids. Because I don't know how many children that you have, but he did mention that he was waiting. One of the parts of the testimony that he was waiting for his children to get off the bus. So I know he does have kids, and that's awful. You're gonna miss everything, and I'm sad about that. I really am. But you didn't see everything that I saw, and you weren't in that fucking deliberation room. So you know what? I don't know what to fucking tell you. I do know what to tell you is you can actually volunteer for jury duty if you'd like. So if you think that you are more able to come up with a better decision and convince more people of your right ways, motherfucker, you know what? I'm not sure. I forget what the website is. I probably should get it and post it up like every time I talk about it. Be like, if you think you can do better, there's the door, baby. You can go sign up right now. They'll call you. So go to it. Wasn't fun. Probably honestly, obviously everything that's kind of like hard or challenging in your life like that, better for doing it. But crazy nonetheless. Let me see how much time I'm at. Oh. No problem. Like a half hour. I don't know how long ago. Maybe an hour. But anyway, yeah, let's look at some of the comments from the public. All right. Well, sorry for the interruption. Maybe I'll hopefully try to edit that out and post, but maybe not. All right. Well, this brings up a good point. So, we can kind of get into the sordid tale, and also we can touch on this real quick. Um, so this gentleman, Mr. Jason Nichols, or is it Nicholas? Nicholas. Okay, Jason Nicholas. All right. Is a nice man. He was outside the juror entrance yesterday. He wanted, comments or quotes or whatever. And I took one of his cards and I ended up emailing him. He said, I have no problem answering any questions you might have, and we can talk about whatever you want. So he had me call him, and I talked to him for probably about a half an hour. And we gave some comments. So I guess there was only the one black gentleman who was on the jury. I think so. Being that he's named in here in this article that we're looking at, I'm sure that he's okay with being named, just like I am. So I'm gonna assume, but we'll just leave it at Dominic. He, gave a comment after the trial, and I guess I was the only other one to give a comment after the trial. And I guess there's another case, and this is why this case has maybe had more attention even put on it. So, and I don't know the date, and we can probably, like I said, later future episodes, we'll kind of do a little more planning and maybe make a little outline and shit like that, like I would normally do for a regular show. I'll just say roughly 2 to 3 years ago, at another prison, there was a man. I think his name was Robert Brooks. Actually, I think if I went on this site, this guy does cook it. Okay, yeah. So Robert Brooks, yeah. So he was at a different prison up here in upstate New York, central New York. Upstate, I guess, is more down south. We would say, but it's like central New York. And he was killed, I guess, in a more torturous manner. And I did not know about this at the time. I kind of heard after the, I guess we were in deliberations, and this topic came up because one of the other juror members was, brought it up. So this other guy was kind of like tortured, I guess, in a sense. He had a bag put over his head and was like beaten, very severely, and died. And maybe some other things happened to him too, but obviously above and beyond what needed to happen. And what coincidentally, so what was weird, that particular case with Robert Brooks, they had body cameras, and apparently the whole thing was able to be seen, the whole incident, which made it very, very, very different from our case, which, like I said, you could only hear, the incident and not see what happened at all. But Robert Brooks, that case happened, like I said, 2 to 3 years ago, and all of the officers, I think, caught like pretty serious charges. And I really forgot where I was going with that, but I guess, like I said, that was what made this case more stand out, was that, this had already happened. A bunch of COs from the other prison had already, been convicted and went to jail. Their trials had already been over at this point. So there was already reason for reform, I suppose, in New York State prisons, So this incident kind of was like, hey, well, the fuck's going on? Why? And I guess I was saying, speaking from inside the prison system, be like, hey, we just had all this like scrutiny put on us. Why the fuck? What are you guys doing? So to speak. So, where. Okay, so I guess like my initial take was, so I gave this guy a bunch of quotes. I talked to him maybe for like 20 minutes or so. And like I just kind of like spilled my mind freely, nothing. I didn't hold nothing back. I'm not scared to hold nothing back. Like I said, anybody that thinks fucking different, you go sign up for that damn jury duty. You know what? Next officers coming up in May, so go sign up now if you want to get in. You're more than welcome to it. Maybe you'll see it different. But everything that I saw, I can sleep at night. So anyway, I gave this guy some, a bunch of quotes or whatever. He was like typing furiously, he said, and I do talk kind of fast probably. But I had mentioned offhandedly, yes, a question akin to, is anybody that... or have any family or whatever that's in the corrections industry, because that seems like a big job supplier or whatever in the area. And I was like, not really. Before I met my wife, her father, who passed away then, was a corrections officer. So we're talking 2000. So he was a corrections officer. And then he... went on disability because he had Alzheimer's disease. So I think I just mentioned that he was deceased before we met, but he was a corrections officer, back then. So obviously, I'm pretty sure I even said the date too, that it was like 2001. I'm almost positive if I didn't, and he watches this, like, forgive me, but he kind of like put one of my quotes, and it's fine how they do. They take what they want out of the thing, and they'll give you the piece. Like he took the thing I said about America, and not really anything about having that guilty beyond a reasonable doubt part, but just like, oh, America wins for the victim Nantwi, which. Not exactly my intention or quote at all, but yeah, whatever. I'm not gonna fucking cry about that one. But he did kind of offhandedly mentioned, he felt good about the verdict, but even though his wife's father was a retired corrections officer, and so like before I started recording, I was actually kind of hot. I was like, dude, what the fuck? I was like, this man has been dead for like 26 years. He died of Alzheimer's disease. He did not retire. He fucking went out on disability and fucking passed away. I was like, I emailed him. I was kind. I was like, but please, I gave him all those facts. And I was like, please do something with that, because that's not fair to this man. He has zero to do with any incidents. He's been dead. And poor man died of fucking Alzheimer's. I've never met him. I've been married to my wife for, I think, I don't know. We've been together for a long time. I think 22 years is either the length of time that we've been together or the anniversary. And I'm sorry, babe. Love you. I don't know why. I should know better than that, but I challenge you to also know the dates. I bet you don't. But anyway, I was like, this is not a fair representation of, my wife's dead father. So he emailed me back or messaged me back, say he's going to take it out. So anyway, yeah, everything else I don't really, like I said, I said what I said, and I don't really care. You want to say freaking this guy, America got won because this guy got killed or whatever, that's fine. But, okay, so I introduced briefly Mr. Spicer. Let's see if we got another pick of my man. Mr. Graham Spicer. Oh, why did I go on to a different thing? That's all right. So, honestly, why don't we start with this? Because I have not watched this yet.
Of deliberations, an Oneida County jury returned a verdict in the murder trial of former Mid-State Corrections Officer Jonah Levy.
They found him not guilty of murder, but guilty of every other charge against him in the death of inmate Messiah Nantwi. News Channel 2's Jolene Ferris has your top story.
As to the first count, murder in the second degree, what's the jury's verdict?
The first and only time the words not guilty were spoken when the jury foreperson read the verdict.
No, I'll just say, so I did kind of mention, obviously yesterday was April Fool's Day, and the irony in that, and I did say that it was a sick joke, but I was like, oh, isn't it kind of funny that we give this verdict, and like the first one he'll hear is not guilty, and then the rest will be like guilty. So, I'll just say, like I said earlier, I am sorry to the family, but like, so I and a group of us were one of the ones to not get this guy charged with murder. All right. So, I mean, say whatever you want. We did everything that we could to not get this guy charged with murder. All right. So like, all of the deliberation was probably murder, manslaughter. And then we had, I don't know, I would say 5, 6, 7, we had like 5 strong manslaughters. And then like 2 waffle manslaughters. And then the rest were maybe like 2, right? Like 2 waffle murders, and then like the rest hard murders. So, brother, I keep saying it. You go sign up for the shit. You try to convince these other people. You do your best fucking rah-rah America speech or whatever argument you're gonna make, and you try to convince them to not, put this guy away for murder, despite their very strong feelings to do so. So, you know what? I don't know what to fucking tell anybody. Like I said, I feel terrible for the kids, dude. I got a kid. I feel terrible for the kids. But I feel like we made the right call, and I can sleep at night. So I also don't know what to say, but we'll go.
Mid-State CO Jonah Levy.
As to the second count, manslaughter in the first degree, what's the jury's verdict?
The word guilty would follow 4 more times for 2 gang assault charges, conspiracy, and offering a false instrument.
And I'll even tell you, going into it, I did not. There was not many charges that I was like, I'm not sure. I think I probably, before hearing the instructions or whatever, with my limited like TV knowledge of courtroom drama, I was like, okay, manslaughter's like accidental death. That's what that's how I interpreted it to be. I was like, I think he should get manslaughter. I was like, I don't like the conspiracy bullshit. I don't like the fucking gang assault because they're SWAT team members for the prison that deal with emergency response situations. And I'm going to say this is like all in like, the first day or so, opening arguments or whatever. This is what I felt at that point. Because everything kind of like adjusted a little bit, and you gotta take the facts for what they are. But I didn't like much of the charges, so I guess like going on that first day, I was like, okay, I feel like an accidental death type of thing. I don't know what you would get in years or whatever, but I feel like that is like the just punishment for dealing with these like guys that nobody wants to fucking deal with, frankly. And that one reporter who I talked to, Jason, he was right. He's from way up north near Canada, actually, but New York. But he's said, you guys got a lot of prisons down there, and we have a shitload, dude. I don't know if it's an actual prison. I think it's like a psychiatric center, but dude, there's a shitload around here. I couldn't even guess, like in a 50 or 60 mile radius, I would say there might be like 5, or I'm not even sure. I'd have to look. I mean, and maybe I'll look a little bit more the next time. but I'm more prepared. But yeah.
For filing in the case of the death last March of mid-state inmate 22-year-old Messiah Nantwi.
And so, dude, we're going to find out from some of these comments. You think this guy was a good guy? He wasn't. He was not a good guy. You think he was reformed and a exemplary inmate, reading the Bible and go to fucking work out, doing whatever, just not causing a trouble? No, he was not. So I would say the prosecution did a fair job of trying to keep that information out, but they did let on the last day there was like an extended body cam portion, and one of the officers was pretty candid, so I had no reason to doubt it. But he was like, this guy's a problem. He's like, we've moved him to every housing unit, and like we can't, I don't remember how he phrased it, but it was like, we moved him to every housing unit, and we can't get a handle on it, or something to that effect. He's like, he was caught jerking off on one of the other inmates, blah, blah, blah. And so at that point in the video, one of the lawyers for the prosecution stopped the video and like fast forwarded it to a more relevant section for his, argument. But this guy is not a good guy. All right. And that's what I'm going to say. All right. There was a couple, as we go further into their trial, now, I don't know how to say this. I don't want to be harsh. I'm not going to say that I have zero sympathy. But after finding out this guy did commit 2 murders, and then we'll see the ages too. I believe somebody points it out in one of the comments thing. They were young people, if I'm not mistaken. He committed 2 murders. When we saw the autopsy photos, he had multiple bullet wounds. Somebody else in some of the comments said there was I don't know, it was a high number. I believe we were only able to see 2 on the photos that we were able to see, that they let us see. He had a giant scar in his chest. If I could draw it and somebody could say what that was from. I don't know if it was open heart surgery or who knows, but that's kind of what it seemed like to me from a novice. But none of that shit they'll talk about. So they would not tell you why he was in jail. They would not anytime there was a brief point in the medical examiner's testimony where the bullets were brought up. You couldn't have shooed her away faster from that. And she was the prosecution's witness, but she was just talking, So anyway, this guy wasn't a good guy.
Then the sound of cuffs closing on his own wrists as he prepares to head back to state prison, this time not as a CO, but an inmate.
Very fair verdict. Very happy with the verdict. It would reflect the seriousness of the conduct.
All right, so here's a couple of the other cast of characters that I had to endure over this last couple weeks. These are all the state attorneys. This is Mr. Fitzpatrick. This is Mr. Williams. And this is Mrs. Fitzpatrick. I'm not sure if they're related. Maybe we'll find that out as we go.
Onondaga County District Attorney William Fitzpatrick, the special prosecutor, found himself advocating for justice for an inmate.
For years, we have been ignoring the voices of the incarcerated individuals who have said this happened and that happened. I put a lot of those people there, but they deserve to be treated with dignity and respect unless they act otherwise, and then there are consequences for that.
And then, I watched, I was probably sitting right over here. Oh, you can't even see. Oh, yeah, okay. Right to obviously to the left of that L over here. Right over here. Yeah, I watched that little handshake, and I was like, ugh, smarmy bastards. But you know what, brother, it is what it is. Like you can guess if we want to bring it to politics or whatever. Right, we could have a little game, a guessing game of like, whoa, what do you, what do you think the politics are of the all the people involved? You know, as far as like the lawyers and stuff. Like you can guess.
But those voices have to be.
He's not wrong, right? So you don't deserve to get the shit beat out of you like that in prison. And I don't know if I got to this point earlier, but I guess like what instead of the multiple officers going in there and beating the guy down to submission, like I don't understand why we couldn't tell the roommate, get the fuck out, and just pepper spray the fucking room until it's a gas cloud that looks like a fucking nuke went off in there. The guy's gonna go down. So there's probably multiple reasons. Okay, so I do know there's no doors. There's probably no ventilation or windows, but I'm just saying that I assume, I mean, can we get the guys like tasers or something? There's got to be like another like non-lethal thing that's just like instant compliance, right? Because this guy initially did not comply, which I'm not going to say it every time. I will say it for the first few times. This man did not deserve to die in prison. He did not deserve to get beaten in the manner that he did for compliance either. However, he was under obligation to comply completely. And I believe, like I said, I mean, like a taser, I suppose, you know, maybe in this particular case, possibly with the heart problem, if you shock a motherfucker, it probably might not be great for the heart. But whatever. Like, so there's got to be some other manners of like non-lethal force. Like maybe you don't even have to get in there. Like, because if you could have done the pepper spray example, if that was plausible, bro, we wouldn't even hear about this. Like, you wouldn't even hear about it. You would not even like hear about it at all. I wouldn't have been on jury duty for that. It would have been some other civil trial or some nonsense. But yeah, this wouldn't have happened.
For the voices that have been silenced, like Messiah Nantwi and murdered Marcy inmate Robert Brooks, former Mid-State inmate Georgia White makes the rounds, even standing on the picket line with local COs during the strike last winter.
We went out there and protested with the COs when they were out in the cold. It was freezing cold, and we just wanted to know how could we make the relationship better between incarcerated individuals and a CO.
Until they can answer that on their own, Fitzpatrick fights to make it the law.
Like, this is the other case. So this is another, you know, journalists being cool. That didn't happen in our case. This is that other case, I believe. Because, like I said, our footage, we had no footage.
There's got to be cameras in other parts of the prisons as well.
Defense attorney Graham Spicer declined to be interviewed.
Jonah Levy will be sentenced May 26th.
I did, honestly, I reached out to, full disclosure, I go onto Graham Spicer's website, and he did like the little form and told him if he had any questions about anything in the jury deliberation room, I'd be more than happy to answer. I did tell him that I appreciated his defense. I thought I did a good job, despite it being like a very difficult case. Like it was impossible, dude. Like this guy, I mean, maybe in like the most reddest area in the country, and you pull a jury of all retired COs. Like that's the only way. And then, like, honestly, would that case even go to trial in a place like that? Like, probably not. So
7th here in Oneida County Court, the special prosecutor
Where I
will
live-
request the maximum 25 years in state prison. Back to you.
where I live, that was the best he was gonna get, dude. Honestly, I'm sad to maybe like say it like that. And there was, I know there's like a lot of worry about collusion and or coercion, jury, trying to convince whatever. But I mean, dude, it is what it is. Like, you're in there, you're deliberating, you are trying to argue for what you believe in. They're trying to argue for what they believe in, and having been in there and been through it, like, I'm not going to argue that their view is wrong. Not in there. Like, 'cause what, can you afford to be a fucking dickhead in there? I mean, honestly, so like it goes to a hung jury, which, I don't know how close it actually was, but it seemingly, there was a couple stubbornness to both sides where like the manslaughter only side didn't want to give up. And there was a couple that were like really strong in their beliefs that they didn't want to give up either of, murder on the way down. So, dude, it's like so difficult to try to get a consensus of so many different people. But, all right. So here's we're going to get into community comments, which will not be exhaustive. We'll try to do what we can. That's the right tab? Okay. All right, so this is off the main story, the WKTV. This is our local, news. All right, so we got pro and con, baby. It's gonna be all over the place. This guy, the state has military staffing its prisons, and Fitzpatrick wants to fire even more COs. Now, I see this guy's point. I don't even know what the strike was over. So there was that, like I mentioned briefly, at this point when the incident happened last year, March of last year, I believe it was March 1st, honestly. February, there was a strike in I don't know, like I said, I'm not sure if it's only this prison, the whole prison system, like if it was multiple prisons, but, definitely happened at this prison. There was a strike, and they were down, a significant number of officers. I assume it must have been statewide, right? Because Hochul brought in the National Guard to cover. So, or at least it must have been several, more than just ours. But yeah, so this guy's saying, like, they bring the military in to staff the prisons, and then so now you want to get rid of even more trained COs. And his point is valid as fuck, because guess what? If the military was not there, this also wouldn't have happened. All right? We also wouldn't be here. So I would argue the start of it started with the prisoner inmate, the II, as they like to say in the courtroom, the incarcerated individual, started with him being mouthy ultimately. But the fact that the National Guard was there, I think this is kind of like what we kind of saw is what happened is like the National Guard's there. There's 4 young, they're kids, dude. One of them testified. He couldn't have been more than 20 or something. I don't know if he could drink, honestly. They're kids. And I don't mean that disparagingly. It's kind of just expressing their, what they get thrown into on no notice, little training. These 4 kids from National Guard come in there, and they're told to watch over this floor. The inmate gets out of hand. National Guard, I believe this was the testimony of this gentleman, that this may have been his first day on the job. The other, there was the 4 National Guardsmen. One of them was the de facto leader. He puts a backup or a call out for backup, backup, backup. This is not a call used in the prison system. So, right, when the SWAT team gets called for backup, 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 that obviously sets this catastrophe into motion of, high tensions, just a high alert situation. So, I'd argue this guy's got a point, with the military, and it's not their fault. There's a problem, and I'm sure there's a problem why the guys are striking, right? But whether it be like pay or, benefits, mandatory overtime, I have no idea. I can only assume, these are the reasons why people strike, lack of benefits, whatever. But, there's a problem. We're trying to send in this Band-Aid to fix the problem. They don't give, the guy testified that he got 30-minute training of like what to do before he went out there, and then they pushed him out. Here, go handle the inmates or whatever, right? You get one that's being rowdy, that a behavior you're not expecting, you don't really know how to interact with that. You make an emergency call. The SWAT team arrives. There's several instances where it could have changed, but. All right, so yeah, this guy, hopefully it'll go to a new page. All right, this guy disagrees. That's what happens when you break the rules. Joey Bag of Cannolis, I'm sure he's great. What a joke, he should have walked free. And then you got this other guy he commented up here, the number of people that seem to forget or don't care, you don't get a free pass to kill anyone, even criminals, regardless of your position, is stunning. Yeah, and I guess like that's probably the main point is, yes, this guy was, I'm not going to disparage him and call him something bad, but he was a criminal that was convicted of 2 heinous crimes, and his sentence was whatever his sentence was, and he should be allowed to serve the sentence, right? I mean, I don't know. I know it's complex, dude. We argued for a long, long, long time about this, So, I thought I had more. Oh yeah, the Facebook stuff. Oh, Facebook. All right, so yeah, this was the verdict. I just kind of grabbed this one because it seemed like we got a lot more like comments. But I'm going to tell you, dude, it's 50-50. Like a lot of people say not guilty on all. A lot of people wanted guilty. I believe a lot of, a fair portion, I'll say, agrees that we did a fair verdict. And I hope I guess that's what I wanted, if ultimately, to get out of the whole thing. Obviously, I didn't want to do jury duty, but I prayed a lot. I prayed. I couldn't even tell you, like, so many times a day. But I just prayed to find wisdom and find the truth and make sure that I was doing the right thing. And if I was doing if I was going in the wrong direction, please, turn me to the right direction. So I feel good in the sense that, I fought for the right call. I think we ultimately made the right call. I don't know. There's arguments to be made about overcharging. And there's like the conspiracy charge goes into several aspects. And I guess like ultimately there's just the conspiracy of trying to cover it up, right? And I suppose that's the the guiltiness of it. But there was this other aspect where after the incident, like everybody met at Raspberry's Cafe, which is like a breakfast, lunch, diner type of situation nearby. And like, oh, everybody met here. Here's this photo. And there was never any compelling testimony. Obviously, it looks bad. I said testimony, I meant evidence, which includes testimony, but there was never any compelling evidence that led me to believe in, several others that there was it's like, yes, there's like probable cause, but beyond a reasonable doubt, like, no, there was like women in the group. I don't know. It could have been anything. It could have been just breakfast. It could have been a conspiratorial meeting to cover up the murder of this inmate. But it was just, I just felt really big on we got to have proof, right? But it did come down to other elements as well. I would say, like, I probably in the first 2 days, I had thought that the conspiracy charge was like they were trying to do the Raspberries meeting as like the main charge for conspiracy. So I like I said, the first couple of days I was like, oh, that's bullshit. Freaking, throw that out. But man, you go through it and as time goes on, and I'm going to say too, and this is not throwing shade at the judge or any of the attorneys or anything, but like the judge's instructions are, they want you to go in a certain way. Maybe not a certain way, okay, phrase. So they interpret the law in the way that they see it, right? And there was all this like accessorial liability, which is like the, basically like I was saying earlier about the people being in the same room, you're guilty of murder if you were in the room and didn't stop it or, whatever. But, there was like, all these levels. Oh, if he's guilty of that, then he must be guilty of these 3 things, blah, 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 blah. So like, there's just so many levels and layers. We tried to do good. I guess that's all, the main conclusion. We did try to do good. So, a lot of people, some people are being dicks. I try to be, real nice about it. So, yeah, some people are like, 90% guilty. Okay, well, you go in there and do it. I would say a lot of people are happy, right? It's kind of like I said, we tried to be fair. No, should have been guilty on all. Yeah, of course. So I think they should let all incarcerated individuals in New York out of prison. Yes, that's exactly what. That's what we did our verdict on. You're not gonna make everybody happy. I don't even know what to say. All right, that's what I was talking about. Okay, so breaking news. It was so good to get out of there. Oh, it felt like a weight lifted off. And, not to make light of Mr. Levy's unfortunate circumstance, but it was... set all that aside, and I'm just going to complain about myself for a minute. It was like being trapped in this little fucking pocket. Like, I guess actually, like, during the deliberation was a slightly better, even though you were completely trapped, locked in a room. But there was 2 bathrooms, and I could, like, actually drink water. So, like, days during court, they say that you can, like, get up and go to the bathroom. But I'm telling you, my bladder is the size of a walnut if I'm lucky. And when I start, I go off in the morning and start drinking, like there's a lot of peeing involved. So if I drink my normal amount of coffee, normal amount of water before 10 a.m., let's say, this is when I had to be inside the jury box at 10 a.m., there's going to be a lot of peeing between 10 a.m. and lunchtime. So I basically had to dehydrate myself. And it was, fine. I was happy to civic duty for my country is what my son says to say. But I was happy to do it. But there was some uncomfortable elements, leave it at that. Anyway, so this guy, didn't Nantwi murder a 19-year-old kid and 36-year-old man in a 27-hour period? Right? You're not allowed to know this before the case. Or, I don't know if they would have let you know that. I bet they would have tried to strike you if you knew what the guy was murdered for, or what the guy was in for. So, I don't know, but I assume so. But like I said, I knew nothing, and I answered honestly. I was like, I don't even know what you're talking about, bro. I was like, I kind of heard something about it, maybe, but I got to do this stupid show about Donald Trump over here. So, yeah, well, you get the all instead of most relevant. Anybody contact the families of the victims for the interview? He's like, yeah, they had an interview on that WKTV. I think, yeah, he seemed like he was happy with it. He wasn't like mad that the murder didn't happen. Like I said, it's a tough call. I mean, to say like not guilty on all charges, you would have had to have, I would say, a pretty cold fucking heart to do that. All right, that's what I would say. Like starting now, once we go through, I'm gonna go through, try to get a little bit more of a bearing on each section of the trial. Talk a little bit more about each section in depth. Just cause, honestly, I have not had time to do show prep. This has taken up all my time. Even before the jury duty, like I had taken a week or two off because I just didn't want to talk about the war, man. I am like so sick of the fucking war, and like there's just nothing going on except that, and I just really have no witty commentary to talk about that at the moment. So it's actually kind of works. So we're just gonna do a little P&G sidebar for couple weeks or however long, and then like I said, I'll probably come back to it, semi regularly. Like when the next guy goes on trial, there's a group of 4 of them that are going to go on trial, and when this guy gets sentenced as well. So I kind of want to see the whole thing out. I don't know if I necessarily want to be in the courtroom. I did mention to Dominic in the room, right? Because I think he's fine mentioning it, like I said, because he commented in that article. He was one of the strong, murder sides. He wanted all the charges, but I told him. I was like, man, if we get this guy for all these other charges and not the murder, like that's actually, I was trying to explain the benefit of preserving innocent till proven guilty of like the most heinous crime. And then also I was like, with all the other crimes, he's going to get punished. He's going to hurt for a long time for what he did and what he took part in for this, so that was one of my arguments against that. I was like, he's going to serve his time. Don't worry. But like I said, like, man, to do not guilty on everything, I don't know where you're going to find that jury, dude. I really don't. And like I said, I live in New York, which I would say is, when it comes to Trump votes like this, I would say, this county is red. But I would, it's not 90-10. It's, maybe 53-47 at best, maybe. Maybe a little bit more, but I doubt it. It's probably shrinking by the day, honestly. Everything going on. So you're gonna have a hard fucking time, dude. Like I said, you'd have to be in a very specific part of the United States to get not guilty on all. I'm sorry. These guys are. Anybody saying otherwise, like I said, go sign up for jury duty and see what's up, dude. Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, yeah, I think, like I said, the majority are happy with it or okay with it, right? And then there is like a tiny minority that would have liked it to be, less. They're a little more understanding of the guard situations, which, believe me, there was the group of us that was very understanding. I think everybody as a whole was understanding, up until a point, right? There was a point when the force got out of hand, and that it loses a lot of people. And then I would say even like, oh, the guy's resisting, like you're allowed to do some stuff, but obviously it got out of hand. And then once you saw the boot print, like I'm not sure if I could find it somewhere, like when I get to talking about that part of it. Come on. I mean, I guess it was opposite American History X, but I mean, essentially, you know what I'm saying, like that, American History X, man, it was crazy. So, not good. Yeah, I mean, I think everybody's kind of okay with it. I've been going for a long time. I kind of got to pee and shit, so I'm gonna stop for now. This has been P&G Sidebar episode. Not really one. It's probably like the little half episode 0.5. Just a little lead in, a lot of rambling. I don't expect anybody to kind of keep up with all that, but I am going to try to go, like I said, a little more in depth. I have a lot of thoughts in general, like I said, about the whole process, the selection process, which I think, sidebar, I think I would be amazing at jury selection. I wish there was like some kind of way to like test that out. I would like to gamble on that, so to speak, and see if I could pick a jury that was, favorable to, whatever side, the prosecution or defense. But anyway, so I have a lot of thoughts on like that process, just the way the prosecution and the defense lawyers interact. Like I said this in the jury room too, like how it was like so performative. It was like a WWE promo. And, everyone clapped, of course, a hilarious joke. But, it really was, it was hilarious at times where, I really felt it was like fucking Stone Cold Steve Austin and like The Rock, battling it out. Where you're like, oh, but a lot of thoughts on that. And just, like I said, like the overcharging, they really leave a lot up into like the jury's hands. And like, I guess like before deliberation, I was kind of under the impression that, I was like, oh, the only reason that we're here, the jury, is like they need consent from the people to, do their dark ritual of courtroom magic or whatever, not quite that ridiculous, but, in a sense. So they need your consent, the people's consent, in order to, be able to put people away for years and life and all this and that. So I don't know. That's what I thought like beforehand. And then like now at the end, like I still think that somewhat, but also there is an element of the jury of your peers, man. Like it's a roll of the dice. I mean, I think they get 6 strikes each side to strike the potential jurors. Dude, that's a roll of the dice. Like, I don't know. I do hope Mr. Spicer does contact me, because I'd love to know like what he thought I was as like a juror, and just kind of I'd like to have a little 10-minute conversation with him if possible. But it's a lot is riding on that, of you reading somebody at their face value of like, oh, what does this person think? Is this person sympathetic to my cause, or is this person like antithetical to my cause? So it's probably impossible, honestly, to like read people to such a degree to pick a great jury, but interesting. And then going on through the whole performance of each side during the witnesses and the evidence and all this, and then ultimately the deliberation. But it's a lot to talk about. I don't think anybody would watch this, but I do appreciate if you did, because this is kind of almost like a therapy session for me, just to talk about it. If you do have any questions, please feel free, comment, the email, pitchforks.guillotines@gmail.com. Feel free to email me. I'm happy to answer any questions. I'm pretty open about it. I have no shame or, like I said, I feel bad for everyone, every family involved. It's a terrible tragedy all the way around. So, I mean, I don't have any problem talking about it. Like, like I said, I'm not going to lose sleep over the decision that I made. So, all right, have a great day, everyone, and we'll see you next time.